Books, books. I like books. I'm gonna read them all.
Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I review fantasy, Stephen King, all sorts of books. And today I'm going to be doing my November wrap-up and my December TBR. November was a busy month, a very busy month. First of all, I was gone for a full week for a trip that I went on to Las Vegas earlier in the month. And then, of course, we had the Thanksgiving holiday, which was also really busy for me. So, yeah, guess what? I only finished 2 books in November. 2 out of 5. And you know what? That's okay. That is okay. I only finished 2, but you know what? I'm really glad that I was actually able to finish 2 with everything that's going on. So, again, I made it a goal this year to not put too much pressure on myself, and I feel like that's worked because I don't feel like disappointed or sad that I didn't finish more books. I feel proud that I finished 2 books. So which 2 books did I finish, you may ask? Well, those are Upon the Midnight Clear by Sherrilyn Kenyon and Just After Sunset by Stephen King. Now, since I only finished these 2, I'm not going to rank them because these books are completely different, so it's really hard to rank them. This is a short story collection filled with horror and thrilling stories, and this is a paranormal romance book. So, yeah, I can't really put one above the other. But I will start with talking about Upon a Midnight Clear. So this is like the 10th, 11th, 12th book I read by Sherrilyn Kenyon. And I don't read her all the time, but I do like to read her books when I am going on a trip. I feel like her books are like the perfect like plane book to read when you're like sitting in an airport or trying to kill time when you're on an airplane, because they are supernatural romance stories. They're usually about a young human woman who happens to come across some type of godly character. There's been angels, shapeshifters, werewolves, like you name it. But for the first time in this book, it is the male character that's a human, and it's the female character that is the god type character. So I really liked that switch. It's far enough in the series that I'm surprised it hasn't happened already, but I really liked that switch. I liked the human character being the male and the all-powerful, god character being a woman. This book is also quite short. It's under 300 pages. And if you can't tell by the title, Upon a Midnight Clear, it does have a lot of like cozy winter Christmassy vibes, right? So the setting is like this human guy kind of like lives off the grid in a log cabin in the middle of nowhere, and it's snowing, and it just happens to be Christmas time. So I really liked all of those vibes. I feel like that puts me in the mood for December and the Christmas season. Is this the best book I've ever read? Absolutely not. Like, it is super corny. It's super over the top. Even the steam, I think, in this one is more corny than I've read before. But, like, it still brought me like a warm feeling inside. Like it gave me a cozy, warm feeling. Again, not because it's a great piece of literature, but because it's just fun. It was just a fun read, and that's all there is to it. Now on the flip side, Just After Sunset, I wouldn't call this collection fun by any means. Stephen King's short story collections are really hit or miss for me. I think my favorite so far is his first one, which I think Night Shift, I think it's called. I really liked that one, but since then, I've kind of struggled with them. Like, there's usually a couple stories I really like, and there's other stories that I'm just kind of like, I don't know. But this one, I actually was pleasantly surprised with this one. I feel like there were a lot more, the percentages of stories that I liked compared to didn't like, I feel like was quite high in this one. And I did not read anything about this book before I went in. I went in blind. So I was very surprised when a lot of the stories in here reference 9/11 either directly or indirectly. And of course, it's because this collection came out shortly after that event happened, but I didn't know that going in. So I was very surprised by that. So as someone who lives in New York, obviously I was very affected by that. So I really connected to those stories. So because there was like a really personal connection here, I feel like that elevated my enjoyment of this collection. So someone may have a completely different experience. That was just my personal experience with these stories. Again, I don't love every story in here, but the ones that reference 9/11, the ones that reference, there's a really great story in here called Cat from Hell, and I really love that one too. There's just a lot of really great stories in here. So like I said, the amount of stories that I loved compared to the amount of stories I didn't care for was quite high. So I'm going to have to like go back and do a full review of all his collections, but it's possible this could be my second. I still don't think it's as good as Night Shift, but it could be my second favorite King collection. So those are the two books that I finished. So the books that I did not finish yet are The Nomad's Crucible by Charles McGarry, aka Bookish Jazz. I'm literally like almost done with this. I'll probably finish it tomorrow. But because we're already on, December 3rd, like I couldn't count this in November. Same thing with A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lynn. Again, I will finish this one this week. Not in time to include it for November. And then finally, The Longest Autumn by an author whose name I can't remember. I want to say Avery. Yes, Amy Avery. Again, I am quite enjoying all three of these books. It would have been really hard to rank all of these because there's not one of these books that I dislike. I like them all. But yes, they will be included in my December TBR. So when I do my December wrap up, eventually I will be including these. So since I will be done with most of those books this week, and because I am a crazy person, I have 5 additional books picked out that I want to finish in December before the end of the year. I have no trips coming up. I'm going to take time off from work around the holidays, but I don't have any like travel planned. So I'm hoping that I can actually finish all of these books. So let me show you what I have picked out. First up, I usually do a recommendation from one of you. And this isn't a recommendation, but it did come from one of you. And that's going to be Warcross by Marie Lu. This was actually sent to me by CJAR, and I've been really wanting to read it. I wanted to read it before the end of the year, and this is literally my last chance before the end of the year. So I'm going to be reading this. Next up, I have my Stephen King book. And because I am going by publication date, the next Stephen King book on the list was Under the Dome. Now, this is a chunker. It's over 1,000 pages, and I did the math on a calculator, and I would have to read 35 pages a day in this book in order to finish it by the end of the year. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, and I don't want to rush. So I'm just saying it here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be reading this into January. Maybe I'll love it and I'll blow through it, but if not, like, that's okay. I may not finish this one for January. I may not finish it before the end of the year, but that's okay. I'm going to start it and see how it goes. Next up, I have my adult fantasy for the month, and I wanted to kind of pull something off of my backlog for this one. So I went back and forth on a couple different books, but I landed on Night Angel by Brent Weeks. Now, don't be alarmed. Even though this book is quite chunky, this is actually a collection of the entire trilogy. So there are 3 books in here. So as long as I finish book 1 before the end of the year, that'll be sufficient. And I believe book 1 is under 400 pages, so that's very doable, very doable. I don't really know anything about this series. I've heard good things, but I'm mostly going in blind, so if anyone knows anything about this one, let me know if I'm in for a good ride or a hard ride. Next up, I have my rando pick of the month. And again, I have been waiting to read this specifically for December, and that is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. I've been reading one Fredrik book, Backman, a year, pretty much. I read A Man Called Ove, which was like my favorite book of the year. Britt Marie was definitely on my top 10. So I have very high hopes for this book. Very high hopes. And this takes place in like a quiet town. There's hockey involved, so it's a very wintry book. So I'm hoping that it gives me all the wintry feels, and I hope that it measures up to some of those other books that I love. Next up, I have my YA fantasy pick of the month, and I wanted to try something new. Even though my adult fantasy book, Brent Weeks, that is a new author to me, I wanted to try another new author, so I have picked out The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I know Holly Black is super popular, and I believe this series in particular is super popular. I've never read it. I've had this book for about a year now, maybe a little over a year. I've really been wanting to try her, so again, what better chance than the end of the year? And finally, I have my book box book pick, which is going to be The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. I have heard so many people rave about this book, and I'm actually a little nervous about this one because it's supposed to be a cozy fantasy, but I've struggled with cozy fantasy. Some of it is like too cozy for me, but I mean, this book is just absolutely gorgeous. I'm obsessed with it. It's so pretty that, you know, December, Christmas time, that is like the only time of year to me that like a cozy book is acceptable. Normally I like the more darker stuff, so we'll see what happens. I'm super excited to dive into this one, but I am a little hesitant. I am a little nervous that it might be too cutesy, too sweet, but we'll see how it goes. So with the 5 books I picked out, plus the 3 I have left over, that's a total of 8 books for December. I don't know if that's my biggest TBR of the year or not, but I think I can do it. And you know what? If I don't, that's totally fine too, because, you know, reading anything is positive, I think. So even if you don't finish it, that's okay. So that is it for me today. I went to look for some furry friends, but they are all asleep right now. So in the meantime, now I want to know from you, what was your favorite book in November? What are you planning to read in December? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff coming your way soon. All right, everyone, happy reading.